But what they don't say is the majority of women go to college for useless degrees like psychology.
Whenever gender differences come up in public debate,
This is really important. Pay attention. The wage gap.
So-called wage gap seems to dominate the conversation. You've heard it. A woman makes 77 cents for every dollar a man earns. That's a statistic that you'll hear a lot. Presidents have repeated it, many candidates. It's everywhere. And yet that number compares all American men to all American women across all professions. No legitimate social scientist would consider that a valid or meaningful measure.
So what he's saying is how they calculate the wage gap is they take all the money that men make and all the money that women make, and they compare it. And they said, okay, this group over here of men, they make 23% more than the group of women. But what they don't say is the majority of women go to fucking college for useless degrees like psychology, like early childhood education. Okay, the only good degree that women naturally head to is nursing. This is a stable, very, very good field. And that, shocker alert, that ties in naturally to their feminine nature to nurture. And it's literally called nursing, which is nurturing. Okay, you're nurturing people back to life. And you have presidents like Barack Obama. I think the wage gap thing came into say under the Obama presidency. And he's just saying about it over and over and over again. I don't think Big Daddy Trump said that shit, right? So you got to pay attention. You got to pay attention. Listen to this shit. And we're going to talk about the wage gap here a little bit more.
The number doesn't mean anything. It's intentionally misleading. It's a talking point. Once you compare men and women with similar experience, working the same hours and similar jobs for the same period of time, that's the only way you can measure it, the gap all but disappears. In fact, it may invert. One study using census data found that single women in their 20s living in metropolitan areas now earn 8% more on average than their male counterparts. By the way, the majority of managers in the workplace are now women. Women on average are scoring higher on IQ tests than men are. Even physically, men are falling behind. A recent study found that almost half of young men failed the Army's entry-level physical fitness exam during basic training. Fully 70% of American men are now overweight or obese. That's compared.
70% of men are. Oh, that's a problem in America in general. That's just due to the food culture. When I was there in Miami, like watching the commercials and shit, I feel so sorry for my buddy Harry Zikos, because he just sat next to me and he's just like watching American TV, and I'm just like cynically breaking down every single piece of commercial and television show. And we were watching Godzilla, and I was just like, "Do you see this shit? This is propaganda. Do you see this shit? This is propaganda." And Harry was like being a good sport. He's like, "Yeah, I understand." But, I mean, I just so transparently see the propaganda in the United States. Everything has become propaganda. Corporate propaganda, social justice warrior propaganda, anti-male propaganda, body positivity. You know what body positivity is? It's all about getting you to consume more and buy more, all for these corporations to make money. That's it. They don't give a fuck about you.
Compared to 59% of American women. Perhaps most bafflingly and terrifyingly, men seem to be becoming less male fundamentally, measurably. Sperm counts, for example, across the West have plummeted. They're down almost 60% since the early 1970s. Scientists don't know why this is. Testosterone levels in men have also fallen precipitously. One study found that average levels of male testosterone dropped by 1% every year after 1987, and it's not related to age. In other words, the average 40-year-old man in 2017 would have testosterone levels 30% lower than the average 40-year-old man in 1987. There is no upside to this trend. Lower testosterone levels in men are associated with depression, lethargy, weight gain, decreased cognitive ability. Nothing like this has ever happened to a population this big. So you'd think we'd want to know exactly why. What's going on? How do we fix it? And yet the media ignore that story. It's considered a fringe topic somehow. Nor is it, believe it or not, a priority in the scientific research establishment. We checked, and we couldn't find a single NIH-funded study on why testosterone levels are falling. We did find a study on, quote, pubic hair grooming prevalence and motivation among women in the U.S., So those are the numbers, and they paint a very clear picture. American men are failing in body, in mind, and in spirit. This is a crisis.
And when men fail, the culture fails, because without men, there is no culture. Men make nations. Men defend nations. Men build nations, okay? We are the builders, protectors, and defenders of nations. It's been like that since the dawn of civilization, and it will never, ever change.